I don't know.
So it talks about crayon.
Yeah. So, well, I was like, talk to like history, like how we came to LA. Was successful.
Just a point by, rather than a point by point translation, recap the most essential information. So you don't have to necessarily paraphrase, like we've done a difference between paraphrasing and summarizing. This is just a different way of doing it. But you can paraphrase first and then summarize if that's easier, so that you can go sentence by sentence, just like we did. So work together, sentence by sentence.
So it kind of like starts off
And then, so you're successful, and now he was lost.
talking about how he was and he killed his son.
Haman. Yeah.
Because he was like angry with his father. It's pretty important.
Okay, so,
Do we say how, like, do we say what he, not like what he said, but do we have to recap how they died also?
No,
Or do we just say?
just like this part where we're listening here. It's just only his monologue part. So we just have to summarize what he's telling.
Pulls out the sword. Gotta leave him as
so, and then they're both taking it on themselves.
So right now you guys are just,
We're just kind of like going it before we write it down.
I love it. And then when you, before you go to write it down, you remember to ask yourself some of these, the questions of the who, the what, the when, the where, the how.
Do you want us to like kind of bullet our summary and then
It
we
is
can-
fine if you bullet.
So I think that we should kind of just do it. So I think.
So, summaries are often very short. Go, he was like talking to. No, it's cool. Oh, Corey. Yeah.
Messenger speaking.
Can you rephrase that question?
He summarized what happened
Yeah, not every single thing. He recounts, so you take who, what, when, where, why. So in the title, the author shows that, but in this monologue, the messenger recaps the main ideas by showing this, and that shows the effect. So if you guys want to fill Kristen and Valerie in on what you're writing up?
Okay.
Awesome.
So we're taking on page 67. The messenger has like a piece of monologue. It's from
So remember, so I
launched in 380.
why is the word I in there?
1/439.
and okay, so that's a great, so now we are talking about the difference between summarizing and paraphrasing. So remember, we talk about third person, first person. If you're paraphrasing, you can be first person, you can pretend that you're the messenger. When you're summarizing, you have to step outside of that and be almost the omniscient person. So you're talking not about what's happening as the messenger, but rather you're talking about the passage as a whole. So if you look at the bottom, in the messenger's monologue, Sophocles shows or does what, and then you just recap what they did. So this is an important distinction to make between summarizing, which is just, hey, this is what happened, and paraphrasing, which you step into that person's shoes and you put it into your own words. So we've been doing a lot of paraphrasing through the harder parts of the text. The summary is when you step back from being the first person and you look at it from being the third person. Okay? So rework that a little bit, and it's fine to do the paraphrasing first. Once you've done that, though, you need to say, okay, so how do I just re-summarize this? And that's why we use this guide on the left.
So, like when it says, I was there for, does it talk
The
about
messenger was there the whole time.
So the messenger was there for.
Yeah. The messenger was there the whole time, so he knew the entire turn of events.
Can you give an example of that?
What is it? Put down there one that says, am I a prophet too?
Well, do you think that he knew in that moment that he was going to kill himself? What did he expect when he got to the cave? Yeah, I'm gonna roll that stone away, I'm gonna rescue her, and everything's gonna be all fine and dandy. What was the thing that she had, right? So that flipped it, the desperation piece, which if you think back to your early journal, what does that connect with? Finding the person he wants to go rescue her in her little tomb, roll away the stone and find her. In what way is that connected to Romeo and Juliet? Yeah, and it seems sort of desperation. Like, what am I gonna do now? There's nothing else I can do. Like, deer in the headlights.
Oh, that's just a play.
Yeah, no, I think they're just like taking him somewhere. Like he's not gonna.
You're writing that down there, just taking it somewhere? No?
We're just doing the monologue that the messenger says. So from here,
Okay.
I know it has so many on here, right? Okay, so here on page 71, nobody else, it's my fault, I could do men take me away. Or continues in your fate is the care of give me away to a fool. When the forest ends, it's basically.
No, I just put for the why freedom, selfish and self-centered.
It doesn't, it's almost like the whole tragedy that he now has to. So while it may make the most sense for the total tragedy to have him die, it almost is worse having to live with the pain.
just summarize what
How
the
would it be?
messenger said.
I'll give you
How
your
he
next step. If
became
you
king,
can, yeah, if
and
you
then-
can just recap or bring Jake into the conversation, explain that we talked about the difference between summarizing and paraphrasing and why we're doing it, and then I'll pick the next thing up. You're right over here with your
Basically, like the
And they'll
first two
fill you
is
in.
like what like the messengers overall said. Then we just summarize everything the messengers said.
What happened up to the, like this point?
Yeah, it's just from
different
line
wins, right? So you have the little win at the moment,
1380 to
and then the moment you
1439.
the moment you play.
And
So instead of like just writing why.
What do you think is the most relevant to your summary? Does it matter that it happened in X, Y, or Z?
You just have to summarize what happened.
Yeah, that's
No, so maybe think about more in play. When does this happen? Right. Okay, and we think of towards the end is literary language. What is that called at the end of the play? Great, falling action, so we're using literary language. So yeah, it happens near the end, but the falling action and moving towards the resolution is more appropriate. Because essentially, if we're thinking of the falling action, if the climax is the most intense point, how does this act as the falling action? How does just this one monologue?
Realizing that everyone
Yeah, he just recounted and realized everything that happened in the climax. He's just recapping it. And Creon's like, or Eurydice, really, his wife, is surprised. So yes.
I know. So it's on the other side.
I know.
Because on the alternate bed, first you make this the oldest and yeah, that's what I was going
Yeah, it's like the same crayon toy.
They're just trying to make it.
Okay, if you are able and if you're ready to move on, I would like, once you've summarized, right, not paraphrased, not just done the paraphrasing, but stepped out from the third person and looked in. I want you to ask yourself, why is the messenger so important in this scene as a plot device? Why does Sophocles bring in this random messenger to talk to Eurydice? How does it work in the whole plot? Why isn't it Creon? Why isn't it somebody else that's telling them? Okay, so think really, what is the role of this messenger? Because this messenger doesn't have a name. That we've never really seen this messenger before. We've seen the sentry. So why this random character? As a plot device, why does Sophocles use him? Okay, so that's a conversation you're having after you finish your summary. Great, so I'm just setting you up for
Same thing with like why did you make that when the second son that we never heard of before?
Yeah, I think it was like intended to keep it for her like less personal and less emotional because if she had someone there to comfort her, I think she would have committed suicide. But since this guy was just like this random person,
why would it be
she didn't
important
really
that
know,
he's
like
unbiased?
it pushed her further.
Wait, what? Yeah, I was.
Like if it had been Creon, she could have been like talked out of it.
Oh, wow. The girl.
She didn't like
It's
feel
Creon's
comfortable
way.
talking to him.
Yeah.
He liked him.
Can you explain that?
So I think like in order for that to
I know, right?
yeah, it's like in order for her
So
to
recap your conversation.
That's
he
amazing.
didn't use this specific character.
The thing is like it would be a tragedy.
Okay, so right as well, building on that, that is very insightful. I would like to make sure everyone is.
I just wrote the
done.
Jets, that's all.
Yes.
So there's like a part where you just like their older son died. Why did they hurt him?
Okay, so can you read that?
Line like one.
Mhm.
The older son died a hero, and today, like I just thought it was probably
Okay, so what, that is interesting because we haven't heard of him before. What impact does including that have? Like, what is, think of this stage, put yourself in Eurydice's shoes. What has just happened to her? She just lost her son, and whose fault was it? Okay. So she's in this moment of, oh my gosh. Now, by including this detail that we've never heard before,
I think it's just because
what effects does that have on our understanding of Eurydice as a character?
messenger doesn't know like Creon's background.
Yeah.
So he doesn't.
She's already depressed, she's already traumatized.
Yeah.
In this part,
Just like I can just catch
she was in a random part where they're like brothers and like he was. He died a hero in that war fighting for their town. Now, she has just lost him. Oh, yes, Mateo, please. Yeah, he lost, I mean, he lost not only part of the town, he lost his son, he lost a lot. He lost their king, you know, like their two kings, so he's, yes, and you know, and the thing is, when you step into someone else's, like when I think of him, which is gonna be one of our questions for tonight, and I think of putting myself in his shoes, I think, man, with all that other stuff, it kind of makes his logic, even though I don't totally sympathize with him, makes sense to me. So by including this detail, we have a new insight into her, so just like you said, she's been through a lot. She is already in that heightened.
Crayon for the first half of the play, because it's like, you don't get the full story until the very end.
So after
Like change your
Yeah.
feeling, like why
the
you
Korean council
favorite the one
if you watch the movie,
Yeah, so it gives us like a more human layer. We saw him in a very leader-like layer. It was very
like
insightful.
Anthony and then
So just in terms of what's going on up here, why is the messenger so important in the scene as a plot device? Have you guys gotten to that conversation yet?
Yeah, we said it was because like, since it was almost like Uranus had to die, like in order for it to be a full tragedy. We said that in order for her to like, push that far, it had to be someone who wasn't close to her or emotionally attached to her. Like it had to, if someone was there that could have, that was closer to her, like they could have comforted her and like talked her out of her harming herself. But like instead, since it's like this rainbow person.
Right, and that, like you said, that emotional detachment, she feels maybe
And more closed off than she would have otherwise.
interesting. So that coupled with the other detail that you noticed, kind of really shows her heightened sense of desperation and sadness. Interesting, awesome. So just record that for Clayton and then we'll move on. How are we doing over? Okay, so I see that Holy wrote stays unbiased. What's the importance of remaining, what's the importance of that unbiased? that
Takes
lack
his
of
own life to
bias?
send a message to his father as well.
he gets all the information out without all the other characters. If like one of the other characters were talking, they would just talk about either like themselves and what they feel, or they would just talk about they wouldn't talk about themselves and other characters.
Should I would say that the messenger came into play due to the fact that there's so many emotions that they needed somebody who's kind of like the middleman. Stuck, yeah, I can't really connect to them. So you basically give us the facts without any covering it.
It's also like he's able to tell a lot.
It's right in the end.
Yeah, we have completely
I mean,
Yeah.
and then like he didn't know everyone just like what happened. To realize what he was ever saying, like why they were like, you were the same this other side. I just kept running into their mouth.
That's what it is like, I said, word, that's kind of
So at the end,
the original comma, Korea.
the Korean like wanted to kill himself, but they wouldn't let him do.
Okay, so just finish up. You have about 30 seconds before we move on to the next question. We all caught up over here?
Yes.
What did you guys think of the last, this question, why is the messenger so important?
They give him a reason that he, all he needs is, instead of just making him hate him.
You know, I think they should have put that at the end. At least they didn't have to put it in the beginning, but at least like a little bit in the middle. Like,
And the fact that they didn't really explain it, like, they kind of
yeah,
just
just
like,
threw
put
them
it in.
in.
Yeah, anything else?
Right, so the flashback too, and imagine if you were
So they
sitting in the
were like
audience
intended to take.
and all that stuff just happened, and then, oh, what just happened?
At the
And
end,
this,
like,
this
almost
like
revealed.
messenger comes in, says he's to the light, but also gives me that, like a quick recap. I think when if things are a struggle or when it happened really fast on stage, like, whoa, who was that? What just happened? I don't know what just happened. And it just like blinked
And all
it's
of this
over.
happened
So it gives another reason, like, oh, now that.
Yeah, I know, that was so fast.
As a reader or as a viewer, I get what's happening.
Yeah, it was like this.
Okay, finish up your sentence.
Now this very confusing and just started getting.
And I'm gonna put a question up here. You ready? And I want your group to discuss this question. Who in this play is the tragic hero? Who in this play, think of hubris, think of tragedy, think of dynamic and static character, think of all of these words that we've been talking about. Who is the who's the tragic hero? What are some of the elements of a tragic hero, quick, that we went over? Who must they be? This is going back. The tragic hero is the protagonist. What are they usually in what part of society? Are they usually like a sentry or a messenger? Maybe part of the chorus? Are they usually in? They're what? They're wealthier in a higher class. Okay, so it has to be one of the protagonists, someone from a higher class. What else must they have? They have to have a downfall. What is their downfall called? The tragic flaw. Okay? Hamartia was our Greek word. So whose fault was now think outside the box too. Don't just go with your first gut, but have a conversation. Who could be the tragic hero, and then decide who truly is the tragic hero. Okay? Consider the title as well. The title of this play. All right? Go.
I don't think it's Antigone.
Would you say because he's the one that's the sufferer in the end?
She's gotta cause like an
I would say it was like
Kind of just went off.
What about Haman? He killed himself to
that's what I was
Cherish
But I don't know.
or his
Well, I guess he kind of had
because
Yeah, it was kind of like his dad.
it's ultimately like
Well, he was just like impulsive.
guys, I don't listen to anything. He said I don't listen to my people.
but also it could be
And then what happened? He was like his dad.
He doesn't listen to anyone. I value the individual over
Yeah,
all
his dad's
theirs.
like stubborn.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, but he was like so like he listened to
values himself
Oh,
over everyone else.
He just wouldn't
So in the
listen.
end, he is nothing.
dad.
And everything he said he wasn't going to do.
So is it Creon?
And so as a leader, that not only that you just lost your whole family, but that's very humbling. Like standing up for family
And she
shield
died
blazing, like I'm the
in what
best
she believed
person
in.
ever. But I don't
Creon did not.
advice.
So do we both agree on picking
Extra awesome. 5 awesome. Great question. What do you think I'm gonna say? And in what way do I ask you?
Lady 2 is the higher power.
With evidence and supporting details. Where are we? Juicy? Juicy discussion? Who do you think? Okay, why?
He stood up for his dad and I don't know, I just think that he was kind of like that and then Antigone was very like
So, would you consider Haman a protagonist?
no, he was in the play a lot.
He was.
Why they like give her like a white?
Michael, what do you think? You think it's who?
I thought it was confusing.
Why?
She's like, she didn't really know like how she was a part of like powerful family before they left. No, it was full of tragic.
She meant well, she did it on principle. So my question is, what was her tragic flaw then? Okay, so tragic flaw usually has to do with a personality trait. So what about, okay, so what led her, what personality trait led her to bury her brother?
Just like, honor or something, but yeah, be loyal.
Her loyalty, her bravery, would you say that that's a flaw? How can those things be considered a flaw? Okay, continue on with the, when does brave become a bad thing? Okay, keep talking.
I think that
So all this whole place, her fault. All this tragic, her tragic flaw led to the demise of all these people. Okay, explain. I love it.
But I mean, I guess
Because of the fact that
you're not
she
really
was disobeying
able to break them
which is looked at
knowingly.
that led to all these problems. Royal family.
Okay, yes.
Which then, in turn, led to a tragedy. Not only in the royal family, but in basically the whole community. Because they're too emotional.
So by this rationale, what is her flaw that led to this? She's stubborn and won't listen. But I thought she did it. I thought she did it because she was loyal to her brother and her family and the gods, not the so
Brave and loyal to another person. So I think bravery and loyalty could change, like maybe do bad things, but she knew that she broke the law, which is the thing, but she was trying to honor her brother or something.
she didn't break the law, but she didn't want to see her brother.
It is a conflict triangle. All right, I'll take it. Okay, so this I'm going to use as a foundation for the kinds of questions that we're going to be looking at tomorrow. Now tomorrow, we're going to do a Socratic seminar. How many people have been a part of a Socratic seminar before? Please raise your hand. Socratic seminar. Well, I know you have because I know that you had one last year about you were in Mrs. DeVoe's. Whoever in Mrs. DeVoe did it, you were all sitting down, there were people on the floor chatting about something. Okay, Socratic seminars. Okay, so you may not have called it that, but that's what we're doing when a whole class approaches or confronts questions like we just did. Okay, so we're going to approach some questions like we just did. I'm going to hand these out right now, and what I want you to do is think about on the back of this paper has the guidelines for what it means to be a participant, okay? Can you grab that, Christian?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so what it means to be a participant.
Is Barnhart group? Maybe. They're looking for you, Miss Barnhart.
Alrighty. Okay, so on the back, I just want you guys to look at what does it mean to be a good participant of a Socratic seminar. So underline, talk about it, and don't just read it. What does it truly look like, sound like? Oh, you didn't get one? Look like, sound like, feel like to be a good participant of a seminar. Okay? So we're on the back.
Are we just talking?
Yep, chat
I
about
didn't
it.
say yes or no. That's pretty simple. I feel like that would have been too much.
Yeah, you just don't interrupt people and if you don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, thanks.
Wait, did we do that
Okay, so what does it look like to be a good participant of a Socratic seminar?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We read our own books.
It was weird.
But we didn't call it that, we just put back in some.
And it was like
A talk or something.
something circle.
A Socratic circle, maybe? Okay, so my question is, now think back to that experience. What elements of this, of a participant or this guidelines for a good participant did you use in that ceremony, or that ceremony, in that seminar?
You're getting like good
like ask questions.
Yeah, like if you didn't understand something, you'd always like ask somebody like what they meant by it, like if they were explaining it. Like, I don't know, it's not explain it. But then you wouldn't like just randomly start talking, like you want to talk about something random, you would stay on it.
So like add on how we start out, and then coordinate the question.
The topic, and then everyone would say what they thought about it, and then
Gotta get involved.
yeah, but like you would just like throw it in.
Four different things you want, and you don't have to write paragraphs, just brainstorm, find evidence, bullets is awesome. Okay, because we're just gonna build and build and build on that.